Weed, pokeberry, that's right. This is a nice native, birds just go for this time of year with the fruits on here. You know, this is a time where birds are migrating south. So they need energy, they need a lot of food to get them back to South America or Central America. So a lot of fruit this time of year is really welcome. And whereas people don't like this in their yard, it's one of those things that's kind of rank and you know, not that attractive, especially if they're pooping the seeds out onto your car, or in my case, one time I stupidly had laundry up out back. Yeah, it ruined the blouse.
The roots are so large.
This is, I don't know, I don't think so. But this is a good thing if you want to attract some wildlife and you don't have a lot of area, you know, if you can stand it. It's got pretty white flowers on it, but a lot of people just, you know, get rid of it. They say, oh, I can't have that in the yard, but it's a nice native plant. There's a number of snags in here, and that's another thing about this being a nature preserve. It's not managed as a forest for production. It's just left alone to do what it must do. So what good is having snags out there? Bat habitat? What other kind of habitat?
Woodpeckers, birds, termites.
Woodpeckers.
Snags, yeah, just like dead trees.
It's really important to have them. I mean, you've got to watch out for trees that might be hazardous to hikers going by, but if they're well enough back from the trail, they're certainly something that adds to what you're trying to accomplish. They're perches for owls and hawks who are, you know, trying to size up where's my next meal coming from, and it's a good vantage point for them in many instances. Since there's no leaves, they can kind of see what's going on around them. But it's also, as it goes down, it's food for a lot of insects and fungi and bacteria. So again, the diversity of a forest is enhanced by having dead down material as much as it is having standing dead and living stuff. You've got to have all of that, and you all learned that in your intro last week about ecology, right? So if you go to a forest that doesn't have a lot of down debris and, you know, big old snags in it, you know, it's not as good of a forest in my mind as it could be, because it's going to be missing some habitat, it's going to be missing some nutrients that are going to be returned to help enhance the soil. So, you know, if you have forestry friends who are like, oh, you know, these are over mature, we got to get these out of here, just slap them a couple of times and say, no, this forest is doing what it's supposed to do. Now, I had friends who were in the Division of Forestry when I was working, and they'd just try to bait me in the woods like, oh, look at that, we should cut that down right now. Wolf trees and all the rest of that. But I was proud of every wolf tree that we had, because it was, you know, just showing the next phase of a healthy forest. You know, you gotta have different age classes of trees. You have to have those snags as well as the saplings, and that's what Rosemary and everybody else out here is trying to do now, is to make sure that this forest continues, because it is, as you've walked through, you can see there's a lot of trees that have had a hurting on them. But I'm impressed with everything just in the time I've not been coming out here. You guys are working hard, and thank you for all of that. It's really great to see.
For underbrush material, you know, as far as wildfires go, you know, to clear out down material.
Well, it depends on your forest type. You know, a forest like this is pretty mesic, so you're not going to have wildfires in here. If you have an oak hickory forest on a south-facing slope, that's another story. But here, this kind of forest is not likely to be on fire. And we have to remember that when you're watching those horrible fires out in the west, we don't have conflagrations like that in Kentucky, because we don't have those forest communities, we don't have those slopes, we don't have those Santa Ana winds, we don't have a lot of the factors. When we burn and do our prescribed fires, you know, we're getting a little nervous when the humidity is down to 28%. Out there, they would think they were in a sauna if they had 28% relative humidity to do a burn-in. My colleagues out there say, oh, you know, we're happy if it's 10. So, you know, it's a whole different system as far as, you know, down debris here is not something that's going to catch on fire. We have had instances in 2010, we had a horrible drought where these bigger fuels actually did dry out and cause problems in Kentucky, just being, you couldn't extinguish them. But overall, that's not an issue for us in our forest types here to have those kind of big conflagrations. And a wolf tree, that's what the foresters say is one of these big ones that's kind of all by itself because it's so big. The lone wolf. Okay. Yes.
Never got cut.
Never got cut the first time around, and usually it was because there was some kind of gnarl going on, or some hollow, or just something that wasn't going to make it a tree worth the time of cutting it down because it wouldn't make much at the mill, so they'd just leave it. But those are the good trees in the woods, because now they're kind of like, they tell you what the rest of the forest was like once. It's great to see those. They're kind of a reference tree for you.
Right, okay.
Well, before the darkness takes us, we're getting close to the end, right, Tank?
It was really